I think I didn't do anything wrong. I just did what I needed to feel alive again. But when the process server handed me those divorce papers, right after I'd thrown my husband out into the pouring rain, suddenly everyone saw me as the villain. Now my whole life is falling apart, and I can't even convince my own family that I'm the victim here. Let me start from the beginning, because I need someone to understand my side of this story. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The rain was hammering against our suburban windows that October evening when everything finally came to a head. I'd been feeling suffocated in my marriage to Martin for months, maybe years, if I'm being honest. He was always so predictable, so boring. Coming home from his high school English teaching job, grading papers at the kitchen table, asking me about my day at the insurance office like he actually cared about filing claims and updating policies. "Olenna, you've been distant lately," Martin said, looking up from a stack of essays. "You're coming home later and later, and when you are here, you're always on your phone." I felt that familiar surge of irritation. Here we go again with the interrogation. "I'm working, Martin. Some of us have demanding jobs that don't end at 3:30. I knew that was unfair. He spent hours after school grading and preparing lessons, but I was frustrated. Elliot had been texting me all day, reminding me how exciting our college romance had been, how alive I felt when I was with him. Elliot Rusk had moved back to town 3 months ago, and running into him at the coffee shop near my office had awakened something in me I'd forgotten existed. The butterflies, the anticipation, the feeling of being truly desired. Martin and I had fallen into such a routine after 8 years of marriage and our daughter Abby. When was the last time he'd looked at me the way Elliot did? "Mom, why are you and Dad arguing again?" 8-year-old Abby appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed elephant. "Go to your room, honey," I said, perhaps more sharply than I intended. "Mommy and Daddy are just talking." Martin's expression softened as he looked at our daughter. "It's okay, Abby. Why don't you go read in your room for a bit?" After she left, Martin turned back to me. "Olenna, what's really going on? You used to tell me everything. Now I feel like I'm living with a stranger." The accusation in his voice made me defensive. "Maybe that's because you never really listen when I do talk. You're always buried in your work, or watching those boring documentaries, or... That's not fair, and you know it." Martin stood up, running his hands through his hair. "I've been trying to connect with you for months. You're the one who's been pulling away." My phone buzzed. A text from Elliot. "Still on for tonight? I can't wait to see you." My heart raced. We'd been meeting for coffee, then lunch, then longer conversations about how unfulfilled we both felt in our lives. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight, he was finally going to come over after Martin left for his weekly visit to his mother Helen's house. But Martin had canceled that visit, saying he was too tired. "You know what, Martin? Maybe I am pulling away. Maybe I'm tired of feeling invisible in my own marriage." "Invisible? Olenna, what are you talking about? I love you. I've always loved you." But his love felt suffocating, not liberating. It was predictable, safe, boring. When Elliot looked at me, I felt like the passionate, spontaneous woman I used to be in college, not just a wife and mother going through the motions. "Love isn't enough sometimes," I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. Martin stared at me. "What does that mean?" Another text from Elliot. "I'm parked down the street. Just say when." I felt trapped. Martin was supposed to be gone by now. This was my chance to feel alive again, to remember who I used to be before I became just another suburban wife. "You know what? You should go to your mother's tonight after all." "I told you, I'm tired. I just want to stay home with my family." The word family felt like a chain around my neck. "Well, maybe I need some space tonight. Maybe you should go." "Olenna, it's pouring rain out there. What's gotten into you?" I could feel myself getting more agitated. Why couldn't he just leave? Why did he have to make everything so difficult? Fine. If you won't leave, maybe I should. I grabbed my keys from the counter. Where are you going? What about Abby? I need air. I need to think. Martin stepped toward me. Olenna, please. Let's just talk about this. Whatever's wrong, we can work through it. But I didn't want to work through it. I wanted to escape it. I wanted to feel Elliot's arms around me, to hear him tell me I was beautiful, exciting, worth pursuing. You want to know what's wrong? I turned on him, my voice rising. I feel dead inside, Martin. Dead. You've made me into this boring housewife who talks about insurance policies and grocery lists. I used to be interesting. I used to matter. You do matter. You matter to me, to Abby. That's not enough. The words exploded out of me. God, you're so clingy, so needy. Can't you see I need space? Martin's face went pale. Clingy? For wanting to spend time with my wife? I grabbed his keys from the hook by the door and threw them at him. Just go, Martin. Go to your mother's. Go anywhere. I can't breathe with you hovering over me all the time. He caught the keys, staring at me like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. Maybe I didn't want him to. What about Abby? She's asleep. She'll be fine for a few hours. Martin looked toward the stairs where our daughter's room was, then back at me. This isn't like you, Olenna. Maybe this is exactly like me. Maybe you just never bothered to really know me. The hurt in his eyes almost made me reconsider, but my phone buzzed again. Elliot was waiting. Fine, Martin said quietly, putting on his jacket. I'll go, but we need to talk about this tomorrow. Sure, I said, but I was already thinking about Elliot's hands, Elliot's voice telling me I was special. Martin paused at the door. I love you, Olenna. Whatever's going on, I love you. The door closed behind him, and I watched through the window as he walked to his car in the pouring rain, his shoulders hunched against the storm. For just a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. But then my phone lit up with another message from Elliot, and that feeling disappeared. Coast is clear, I texted back. Elliot arrived 20 minutes later, shaking rain from his dark hair as I led him into our living room. He looked exactly like he had in college, lean, intense, with those green eyes that had always made my stomach flutter. I can't believe you actually got him to leave, he said, pulling me close. He's so controlling, I said, melting into his embrace, always wanting to know where I am, what I'm doing. I feel like I'm suffocating. It wasn't entirely true. Martin wasn't controlling. He was concerned. But standing there with Elliot, breathing in his cologne, feeling desired for the first time in years, I needed to justify what I was doing. You deserve so much better, Elliot murmured against my hair. You always did. I was an idiot to let you go in college. We talked for hours, curled up on the couch where Martin and I usually watched movies on Friday nights. Elliot told me about his divorce, how his ex-wife had never understood his artistic nature. I told him about feeling invisible, about how Martin took me for granted. Remember that weekend we drove to the coast junior year? Elliot asked, tracing patterns on my hand. You were so free, so spontaneous. What happened to that girl? She got married, I said bitterly. She had a kid and became responsible. She's still in there, he said, kissing me softly. I can see her. When my phone rang at midnight, I saw my sister Layla's name and answered. Olenna? I just talked to Mom. She said Martin called her, really upset. Are you okay? I walked into the kitchen, lowering my voice. I'm fine. Martin's just being dramatic. He told Mom you threw him out in the storm. That doesn't sound like you. Maybe you don't know me as well as you think, I said, echoing what I'd told Martin earlier. Where is he now? Probably at his mother's house, complaining about me. And where are you? I hesitated. Home. Alone? Layla, I'm 34 years old. I don't need a babysitter. There was a pause. I'm just worried about you. And about Abby. Abby's fine. She's sleeping. After I hung up, Elliot pulled me back to the couch. Family drama. They don't understand, I said. They think I should just accept being miserable. You deserve passion, he said. You deserve to feel alive. Those words echoed in my head as we kissed, as I let myself forget about Martin driving through the rain, about Abby sleeping upstairs, about the life I was betraying. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. Elliot left around 3 a.m., but not before we made plans to meet at my office the next day. I can't wait to really be with you, he whispered at the door. I was so caught up in the excitement that I didn't notice his jacket draped over the back of the couch. I didn't see Martin's car pull into the driveway at 6 a.m. when he came back for his work files. I didn't know he stood in our living room staring at that jacket, putting the pieces together. But our security camera caught it all. Martin had installed it 6 months ago after a break-in down the street, and I'd forgotten it was there. It recorded Elliot arriving, recorded us embracing in full view of the lens, recorded Martin's face when he found the evidence of my betrayal. He left without waking me, without confronting me, without saying a word. But I know now that's when he started building his case. The next few days, I threw myself into justifying what I'd done. Martin was staying at his brother Tom's house, and I told everyone who asked that he'd abandoned Abby and me. I can't believe he just left, I told my mother Janice over coffee at Riverside Cafe. What kind of father walks out on his family? Mom stirred her latte thoughtfully. Helen called me, you know. She's very upset. Of course she is. She's always taken Martin's side. She said you threw him out in the middle of a storm. I asked for space. There's a difference. Olenna, honey, what's really going on? This isn't like you. I leaned forward, putting on my most sincere expression. Mom, I've been unhappy for so long. Martin's become so cold, so distant. I think there might be someone else. It was a calculated lie, but I needed people on my side. If I could paint Martin as the unfaithful one, maybe I could justify my own actions. Mom's eyes widened. Another woman? He's been working late, taking mysterious phone calls, and the way he's been treating me. I let my voice trail off, implying more than I was saying. Oh, honey, I had no idea. At work, I crafted a similar narrative. My colleagues at the insurance agency had always liked me, and I played up the role of abandoned wife perfectly. He just packed a bag and left, I told my assistant, making sure my voice carried to the other cubicles. 8 years of marriage, and he couldn't even try to work things out. Meanwhile, Elliot and I were meeting almost daily. He'd bring me lunch, and we'd eat in my office with the door closed. He made me feel alive in a way I'd forgotten was possible. You're glowing, he told me one afternoon. This is how you're supposed to look. Happy, radiant. I can't remember the last time Martin made me feel this way, I said. Because he doesn't deserve you. He never did. But the fairy tale began cracking when Helen confronted me at Riverside Cafe that Thursday. How dare you, she said, sliding into the booth across from me without invitation. Helen, I don't think... How dare you tell people my son abandoned his family when you threw him out of his own house? That's not what happened. Isn't it? Her eyes were steel. Martin is heartbroken, Olenna. Absolutely heartbroken. And you're spreading lies about him. I'm not spreading lies. I'm telling people the truth about our marriage. The truth? Helen leaned forward. The truth is that Martin has loved you since the day he met you. The truth is that he's been trying to save your marriage while you've been... She stopped herself. While I've been what? While you've been doing whatever it is you're doing. A chill ran down my spine. Did she know about Elliot? I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm telling you that if you keep spreading lies about my son, there will be consequences. After she left, I called Layla, shaken. Martin's mother just threatened me, I said. Threatened you how? She basically accused me of having an affair. There was a long pause. Are you? Layla. I'm just asking. You've been acting really strange lately, and some of the things you've said about Martin don't add up. I can't believe my own sister doesn't trust me. It's not about trust, Olenna. It's about truth. And I'm starting to wonder if you're telling me the whole story. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Martin. We need to talk. I'm getting legal advice. My blood ran cold. Legal advice meant lawyers. Lawyers meant divorce. Divorce meant custody battles, property division, and, worst of all, the truth coming out. I immediately called Elliot. He's getting a lawyer, I said, pacing my bedroom. So? You said the marriage was over anyway. You don't understand. If this goes to court, everything will come out. What everything? Us, Elliot. They'll find out about us. There was a pause. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe it's time to stop hiding. But I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Elliot was good at being the other man, at stolen moments and secret meetings. I wasn't sure he was ready for the reality of a messy divorce and custody battle. I need to control this, I said. I need to make sure everyone knows he's the one who destroyed our family. Martin's lawyer's office was in a sleek downtown building that intimidated me the moment I walked in. I'd demanded this meeting, insisting we could work things out without involving the courts. I think we can reach an amicable agreement, I told Martin's attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Mills. I keep the house and primary custody of Abby. Martin gets reasonable visitation. Martin sat across from me, looking like a stranger. Gone was the gentle man who used to bring me coffee in bed. This Martin was cold, calculating. That's not going to work, Patricia said calmly. Why not? I'm Abby's mother. She needs stability. Mrs. Greenway, we need to discuss some evidence that's come to light. My stomach dropped. Evidence? Patricia opened a file folder. Security camera footage from your home, showing a man entering your house at 11:47 p.m. on October 15th and leaving at 3:23 a.m. on October 16th. This was the same night you asked your husband to leave. I felt the blood drain from my face. That's not what it looks like. We also have bank records showing charges to hotels and restaurants that don't match your husband's whereabouts or spending patterns. Those could be work expenses and text message records. Patricia slid a stack of papers across the table. Quite explicit conversations with one Elliot Rusk. I stared at the papers, seeing my own words printed in black and white. Messages I'd sent Elliot about how much I wanted him, how Martin didn't satisfy me, how I couldn't wait to be free. These are private, I said weakly. Not in a divorce proceeding, they're not. I looked at Martin, who was studying his hands. Martin, please. We can work this out. Think about Abby. He looked up then, and the pain in his eyes was devastating. I am thinking about Abby. I'm thinking about how you left her alone in the house while you were with him. I'm thinking about how you've been lying to everyone, including her. I never left her alone. You sent me away so you could bring another man into our home, into our bed, while our daughter was sleeping upstairs. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Olenna? Martin's voice was quiet but firm. Explain it to me. Make me understand how any of this was okay. I couldn't. Because when he put it like that, when I saw it through his eyes, through Abby's eyes, I couldn't justify what I'd done. I was unhappy, I said finally. I felt invisible. So you had an affair. I fell in love. You destroyed our family. Patricia cleared her throat. Mrs. Greenway, given the evidence, I'd strongly advise you to consider a settlement that's favorable to my client. This is blackmail, I said, standing up. This is consequences, Martin said quietly. I stormed out of that office, but not before I heard Patricia mention custody evaluations and supervised visitation. The words followed me home, where I called my mother in tears. "Mom, they have pictures, text messages. They're trying to make me look like a terrible mother." "Oh, Olenna." Mom's voice was heavy with disappointment. "Tell me it's not true. It's not what it looks like. Is it true or not?" I couldn't answer. The silence stretched between us until Mom sighed deeply. "I need to think about what's best for Abby," she said finally. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I love you, but I love that little girl too, and she doesn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this mess." When she hung up, I realized for the first time that I might not just lose Martin. I might lose everyone. The divorce papers arrived on a gray November morning, delivered by a process server who found me in my pajamas, hair unwashed, looking like the mess I'd become. "Olenna Greenway?" "Yes." "You've been served." The papers felt heavy in my hands. Petition for dissolution of marriage, requests for primary custody, spousal support, division of assets, and attached to it all a temporary restraining order limiting my contact with Abby to supervised visits. I called my lawyer immediately, a man named Robert Chen who'd been recommended by a colleague. "This is outrageous," I told him. "They can't keep me from my own daughter." "Mrs. Greenway, based on what I'm seeing here, your husband's attorney has built a very strong case. The security footage alone is damaging, but combined with the text messages and the fact that you left your child unattended." "I didn't leave her unattended, she was sleeping. You sent your husband away so you could conduct an extramarital affair in the family home while your 8-year-old daughter was present." Hearing it stated so baldly made me feel sick. What are my options? Honestly, damage control. We need to show the court that you're taking responsibility for your actions and that you're committed to being a good mother. But I wasn't ready to take responsibility. I was still convinced I was the victim in all this. At work, the whispers had started. Someone had seen Martin's brother Tom in the building, and rumors were flying that he'd been collecting evidence. My colleagues, who'd been so sympathetic before, were starting to look at me differently. "Is it true?" my assistant asked quietly. "About the affair?" "It's complicated," I said. But I could see in her eyes that she already knew the answer. Even Layla, who'd been my biggest supporter, was pulling away. "I can't do this anymore, Olenna," she told me over the phone. "Mom showed me the text messages Martin's lawyer sent her. How could you write those things about your own husband?" "You don't understand what my marriage was like. I understand that you had choices, and you made the wrong ones. So you're taking his side too?" "I'm taking Abby's side. That little girl is the only innocent person in this whole mess." The preliminary hearing was a nightmare. I sat in that courtroom watching Martin present evidence of my affair like he was grading a particularly disappointing essay. Methodical, thorough, devastating. "Your Honor," his attorney said, "Mrs. Greenway has shown a pattern of deception, manipulation, and poor judgment that calls into question her fitness as a custodial parent." "That's not true," I wanted to shout, but my lawyer placed a restraining hand on my arm. "We have evidence that she left her minor child unattended while conducting an extramarital affair in the family home. We have documentation of lies she told to family members and friends to cover up her behavior, and we have testimony from witnesses about her attempts to manipulate the narrative." The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, looked over her glasses at me. "Mrs. Greenway, do you dispute the authenticity of this evidence?" I looked at my lawyer, who shook his head slightly. "No, Your Honor." "Then I'm granting the temporary custody order. Mrs. Greenway will have supervised visitation with the minor child pending a full custody evaluation." The gavel came down like a death sentence. As I walked out of that courtroom, I saw my mother-in-law, Helen, hugging Martin, while Abby clung to his hand. My own mother stood apart, unable to meet my eyes. That night, alone in the house that would soon be taken from me, I called Elliot. I need you, I said. Everything's falling apart. Listen, Olenna, maybe we should take a break. This is getting really complicated. A break? You said you loved me. I do, but I didn't sign up for all this drama. The divorce, the custody battle, everyone in town talking about us. So you're abandoning me too? I'm not abandoning you. I'm just saying maybe we moved too fast. After he hung up, I finally understood what I'd done. I'd destroyed my marriage for a man who couldn't handle the consequences. I'd lost my daughter's respect for stolen moments with someone who disappeared the moment things got difficult. But even then, sitting in my empty house, I couldn't bring myself to admit I was wrong. Instead, I convinced myself I was the victim of a conspiracy, that Martin had manipulated everyone against me. The custody hearing was held on a cold December morning. I'd spent weeks preparing my testimony, crafting a narrative that would make me the sympathetic figure. I was going to tell the judge about Martin's emotional distance, about how he'd driven me to seek comfort elsewhere, about how I was the victim of his cold, calculating revenge. But when I took the stand, none of it came out right. Mrs. Greenway, Martin's attorney began, on the night of October 15th, you asked your husband to leave your home. Why? I needed space. Our marriage was in trouble. And what did you do after he left? I hesitated. I had a friend over. Elliot Rusk? Yes. And Mr. Rusk stayed until approximately 3:20 a.m.? I don't remember the exact time. But you do remember that your 8-year-old daughter was alone upstairs while you entertained Mr. Rusk in your living room? She was sleeping. She was safe. Safe, but unattended. If there had been an emergency, a fire, a medical issue, your attention would have been elsewhere. I felt the judge's eyes on me. I would have heard if something happened. Would you? According to the security footage, you and Mr. Rusk were quite engaged. My lawyer objected, but the damage was done. The judge had seen the footage. She knew what I'd been doing while my daughter slept upstairs. The questioning continued, each answer making me look worse. Yes, I'd lied to my family about Martin having an affair. Yes, I'd used my work computer to communicate with Elliot during office hours. Yes, I'd told people Martin had abandoned us when I was the one who'd asked him to leave. Mrs. Greenway, the judge said finally, do you take any responsibility for the breakdown of your marriage? This was my chance. I could have admitted my mistakes, shown remorse, demonstrated that I understood the impact of my choices. Instead, I doubled down. Your Honor, I was in an emotionally abusive marriage. My husband made me feel invisible, worthless. When I found someone who made me feel valued again, I made some poor choices, but I was driven to them by years of neglect. Martin's face across the courtroom was stone. My mother, sitting in the gallery, closed her eyes. And you believe this justifies your conduct? I believe it explains it. The judge made her ruling that afternoon. Martin was awarded primary custody. I got supervised visitation every other weekend. He kept the house. I was ordered to pay child support. Mrs. Greenway, the judge said, your conduct shows a concerning lack of judgment and accountability. Until you can demonstrate genuine remorse and a commitment to putting your daughter's needs first, this court cannot entrust you with unsupervised access to the minor child. As we filed out of the courtroom, I tried to approach Abby, but she hid behind her father's legs. Daddy says I have to live with Grandma Helen now, she said in a small voice. Just for a while, sweetheart, Martin said gently, until Daddy finds us a new place. What about Mommy? Martin looked at me with something that might have been pity. Mommy needs to figure some things out. Standing outside the courthouse that December afternoon, watching my family drive away without me, I finally understood what I'd lost. Not just my marriage, not just my house, but my daughter's trust, my family's respect, my place in the community I'd called home for 8 years. My phone buzzed with a text from Elliot. Sorry things didn't go your way. Maybe we can grab coffee sometime when things calm down. Coffee. After everything I'd sacrificed for him, he was offering me coffee when things calmed down. I saw my old friends from the neighborhood across the street, women I'd had playdates with, whose children had grown up with Abby. When they noticed me, they quickly looked away and crossed to the other side of the street. That's when it hit me. I wasn't the victim in this story. I was the villain. I'd convinced myself that my unhappiness justified my betrayal, that my need to feel alive was more important than my daughter's stability or my husband's trust. I'd told myself that Martin was controlling when he was actually just concerned. I'd painted him as cold and distant when he was really just hurt and confused by my withdrawal. The truth was, Martin had loved me consistently for 8 years. He'd been a devoted father, a faithful husband, a man who brought me coffee in bed and asked about my day because he genuinely cared. And I'd thrown it all away for the excitement of an affair with a man who couldn't even be bothered to show up to court. But even now, even with the weight of my losses crushing down on me, I struggled to fully accept responsibility. Part of me still wanted to blame Martin for not being exciting enough, to blame the circumstances for forcing my hand, to blame everyone else for not understanding my perspective. Maybe that's the most honest thing I can say about myself. I know I was wrong, but I'm still fighting the urge to make excuses. I destroyed my family, betrayed the people who loved me, and traumatized my daughter, all because I was selfish enough to put my own desires above everyone else's well-being. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. I moved into a small apartment across town and started the long process of supervised visits with Abby, who looked at me like I was a stranger she was obligated to spend time with. Martin, meanwhile, found a house near his mother and started rebuilding his life. He never spoke badly about me to Abby, never tried to poison her against me, even though he would have been justified in doing so. Even after everything I'd put him through, he was still a better person than I was. As for Elliot, he moved to another city within 6 months, claiming he'd found a better job opportunity. He never said goodbye. I tell myself I've learned from this experience, that I understand now what I did wrong. But if I'm being completely honest, I'm not sure I wouldn't make the same choices again if I felt that trapped, that invisible, that desperate to feel alive. And maybe that's the scariest truth of all, that even knowing the cost, even having lost everything that mattered, part of me still believes I deserved to be happy, whatever the price. The process server was right to hand me those papers in the storm. I'd created the weather that destroyed my own life, and now I was standing in the wreckage, still wondering if somehow, someway, it was anyone's fault but mine. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.